Hello everyone, this is Marcel. I'd like to welcome you to my channel. So today I'm going to be discussing the concept of MGTOW knowledge and how it can change a person's perspective on the world, as well as how many ways this knowledge is being suppressed and held back from the population. To really be able to share my frame of mind, I'm going to go over an experience I had when I was younger. It may seem a bit abstract at first, but bear with me. When I was very young, I went through a phase where I was interested in nature, especially trees for some reason. You know how we all go through those times in our youth where we get stuck on a particular subject and we learn as much as we can about it? For me, this one lasted a couple of years, actually. I'd started out by reading tons of books on trees, how they were cut, how they were grown, what they were made of, how they survived in different climates and locations. At some point, I got so much knowledge on that specific topic that one day I walked outside and it almost felt like I could see through the trees in my hometown, kind of a surreal experience. My knowledge had grown to the point where it spilled over into my perception of the world. All of a sudden, these huge, majestic creatures that were growing outside had depth to them. I could look at them and see what they were made of, how they worked in a sense. It all became clear. Well, from there, my curiosity became insatiable. I started cutting down trees where it was allowed, dragging pieces of them home and studying them, looking at the way the grain grew and how it formed and understanding the history of the tree and what made it that way. At some point, I hit kind of a second level of knowledge where when I looked at trees again, I lost that majestic feeling that I had for them when I was a kid. It had been replaced by knowledge and understanding, though it did not detract from my appreciation for them. As my confidence grew that my perception was accurate, that I could look at a tree and correctly predict what the outcome would be if I were to cut it down, I no longer felt the need to test my own knowledge against what the outcome would be. Finally, I transitioned into kind of a third stage of knowledge, where I took everything that I had learned and applied it into a craft. I took all of that wood that I'd collected and started making furniture out of it. And I wish I could show you pictures of it, but I made some beautiful stuff with that wood. Tables and chairs and everything. Imagine a hand-carved olive wood inlaid table, polished to a mirror finished with boiled linseed oil. This is the kind of stuff that I made. For such a silly little experience I had as a child, it profoundly affected the way that I perceive the world today. I would suspect that when it comes to learning almost any topic, that the same patterns of understanding can occur. Here's kind of a light example. As I was making my way between classes the other day, I noticed that a young woman ahead of me had a sticker on her pans. One of the ones that they come with when you first buy them. It was lime green and obnoxious, and was stuck all the way from her crotch up the left cheek of her butt. You're probably laughing at me here. So the first thing that came to mind was to rush up and let her know so that she could fix it. But as I pondered that for just a moment, if I were to tell her, there would be one of two outcomes from that interaction. One, she would respond to me face to face positively, but would be ashamed and embarrassed that she hadn't noticed it and would rush away to go fix the problem, but would still be upset from the experience because someone noticed it before she did. Option two, she could actually be offended that I was looking at that area in the first place and would take it out on me in retaliation for her own embarrassment. Without even having to say a word to her directly, I already knew the most likely outcomes of that interaction, so I didn't do it. The best case scenario for her is if she finds it herself and then hopes that nobody else saw it. When I first discovered MGTOW knowledge, I went through kind of a learning phase where I absorbed as much information as I possibly could. I just took it all in. And after a period of time, I started to realize that the people around me were acting more and more predictably. In the same sense as before, my knowledge had spilled over into my perception of the world. For a period of time, I went through a mindset where I would test that which I had learned to see if I was correct in my perception. And enough of the time, I would say maybe 90%, I could predict what people were going to say or how they were going to interact, especially when it comes to romance and flirting, before the conversation even took place. At some point during that transition, all of the confusion, the mystery, even the majestic nature of women and those kind of interactions started to fade away and get replaced by that knowledge. That's why all of these people that try and claim that MGTOW hate women don't understand. They couldn't be further from the truth. You cannot love or hate that which you fully understand. The emotion is no longer really a part of it, at least not to any big degree. It's like a kid growing up and learning the truth of the world. The biggest disagreement they may have with what I just said is the concept of the red pill rage. Well, yeah, if you tell a kid Santa Claus isn't real, he's going to be upset. He's going to be angry that he was lied to his whole life. Though from that point forward, the kid will step out into the world with a greater sense of understanding and will take that knowledge and apply it to their lives. The truth is not always free, and it changes us. One of those trees that I cut years ago as a kid, I went back to it and found that it had grown thorns where I had cut its limbs. Something can really be said about the misdirection that occurs when someone blames the red pill rage on MGTOW itself. Who was it that injured that guy in the first place? Where did that injury come from? Is it from the knowledge, the truth, or is it from something else that he experienced? My guess is that it has nothing to do with MGTOW. He was hurt by the woman in the first place. It is not so much so the appearance of the truth that angers a man so much. It's the realization of the lie. Then finally, there is that moment when the understanding really sets in and can get directly applied to everything that a person does within their daily lives. We have, all of us, a choice where to go forward with our new sense of understanding in the world, that if we so choose, we can become something of an architect, a craftsman, tailoring all of our experiences towards the desired outcome. Is there anything more powerful than to be able to look through people, to not act on emotion, but to act on understanding and logic? Or even better, to see the emotion that's there and recognize it for what it is, then ultimately decide for ourselves. Looking at our philosophy as a whole, if you strip away all of the labels and titles, all that you have at its core is the sharing of knowledge and experience between men. That concept within itself is terrifying to a society that relies on misdirection and confusion in order to control its population. They don't want us to study and understand how the engine works, because then we're more encouraged to take the wheel and drive for ourselves. A big part of everything that I say on my channel is stuff that I wished that someone had told me when I was younger, if not all of it. Come to think of it, never before in history has there been such an easily accessible accumulation of knowledge in one place. Tens of thousands of videos on MGTOW concepts alone. It's kind of a remarkable feat when you think about it, to know that there's that much strength in one place. All of it powers that be would prefer not be accessible. They don't want the young men in our society educated on the truth, primarily because they know on their own they would choose to not fall back to the plantation. You know, there was another time in history when a class of people was not allowed to become educated. It was back when there was slavery. Definitely darker times in society. Yeah, they kept them from gaining new knowledge and learning about the world around them because it would break the illusion of power and they would recognize their real strength and potential. They didn't want them to be able to choose for themselves, but rather to feel helpless, accept everything that they're given and not question the authority. Something can really be said about the concept of keeping knowledge from anyone. It is fundamentally wrong to do so. I can't think of any circumstances otherwise. As a summary, from this point forward in your life, no matter what you choose to do or who you are, take ownership of your future. Decide the direction that you want your life to go, because in the end, that is all that really matters. I hope that this was an interesting and thought-provoking video. If you've had any similar experiences yourself, please put them down below. I'd like to hear them. If you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, share, and until next time, this has been Marcel.